Everyone, and welcome to the Retro Channel. I'm sure you all recognize this thing on the bench, and no doubt it has a fault, so let's find out. So, a Commodore 64 bread bin. It looks to be in pretty rough condition. Let's just see if it powers on. Okay, it does power on to a screen of garbage. Well, at least it kind of works. Let's open it up and take a look. It's missing a screw in the middle. Alright, big old foil RF shield. And we have a 250425 board, and it looks like there's been some work done. There is signs of flux residue everywhere and some questionable looking solder joints. I can see that a couple of these are NEC RAM chips and a lot of them are Mitsubishi ones. There's also been work done here by the looks of it on the 4066, is it? No, it's the 74139 at U15, and U26 has also been messed with. Ew, this is not a good sign, because if there's previous work done, who knows if the fault's been caused by the previous work or something completely unrelated. Let's just continue pulling out this board. Be gone. Oh, shit. Right, so apart from the rework done down in this area, everything else, like the major ICs, are in sockets, which is nice. Looks like most chips are from 84, but there are a couple like the VIC-2 and the PLA from 86. So no doubt they've been replaced, as has one of these CIAs. Let's look at the other side. I'm already dreading it. Oh yeah, it is Bodge City. So yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 Bodge wires, and yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 ICs that look to have been worked on. What have I gotten myself into? I think I'm already starting to regret opening this thing up. Let's throw in one of the diagnostic or dead test cartridges, see if it tells us anything useful. I somehow doubt it though. Let's just start with the diagnostic cartridge. Right, screen full of gibberish. We can see the outline of where those little squares would be. Yay. Let's go to dead test, see if it gets any further. Takes about 10 or 15 seconds before anything comes up on the dead test, so always be patient. Alright, and we also have a screen full of gibberish and those boxes around the outside. The coloured squares down here are just because I'm running the dead test by Stefano Furiosi, so it does have little alternating colours along the bottom, so that's kind of what we're seeing. But yeah, the text is all gibberish. Fun times. I think what I'm going to do is remove most of these major ICs, so you can run the dead test without the CIAs, without all the ROMs, and without the SID, and you should still be able to get through a dead test. So let's eliminate any of those being an issue. Now normally I'd start out any repair with looking at voltages and clock signals, but it's pretty obvious here that we've already got our 5 volts because the system partially works, and we've also got our 9 volts AC because that powers the VIC-2 and we're getting video output. So they're working, and clock signals have to be there for the VIC-2 or the CPU or pretty much anything to do anything. So clock signals must be there, voltages must be there. It's going to be a fault probably over here. Alright, so even with those ICs removed, the dead test still shows us a screen full of garbage, and I don't think it's changed at all. The diagnostic won't run without those major ICs, so yeah, we get nothing, black screen. So I don't have a microscope, so what I like to do is just bust out the foam camera and then just zoom in. And that usually gives me a pretty good shot of what's going on. There's a pad missing on U13. There's a questionable joint on U27. There's a pad and a trace missing on U21. Potentially one or two pads missing on U22. Possibly three. There's one more on the other side of that. Maybe another pad on U23. Maybe one on U25. Very messy leg on U26. That could just be flux though. Alright, so there are multiple issues just from eyeballing this thing. But seeing as all of these things have been taken out previously, who knows what is going on underneath. So I'm going to pull all these RAM chips plus the few logic chips that have been already removed previously and socket the lot. Yeah, looking around the back of this thing, there's so many pads missing all over the shop. So yeah, all of this stuff is going to come out. I'll redo whatever bodge wires are necessary. I'll probably be adding some more, dare I say. But yeah, let's start with a clean slate. Well, that's one down. Far too many to go. This one, dare I say, is going to lose a couple of pads. I can see some on the back that are already trying to escape. Don't know if that was from the previous attempt. But yeah, it definitely wouldn't have helped. Pads don't actually lift all that easy. The main thing you want to try and avoid is actually, if you've got the desoldering gun, you don't actually want to use force to, push down on them. You just want to, lightly do your little jiggle and suck. Don't push down on the pads. It's not going to transfer any more heat. You're only going to push these pads further into the board, heat up the glue that's under them, and they'll be more than willing to bow back out and then lift off the board. So patience. Yeah, this one is not ready yet.
2 hours later.
Alright, so at this point all the ICs that had obvious rework done have been pulled out. I also pulled out these little resistor packs because they also had flux residue around them, so I don't know if they came out as well. But yeah, the board is quite a mess. As expected, there are a lot of pads missing. I saw maybe one pad come off, which I think I managed to collect over here. Now it's disappeared. But anyway, I'll have to do a bunch of bodge wires and just continuity testing. What's kind of funny is there is a MOS logic chip here. So if you haven't heard of the MOS logic chips, they're basically a clone of the 74LS logic. I think the story goes that MOS, which was owned by Commodore at that time, whenever they ran short of logic chips, they obviously had their own chip fab, so they just fabricated their own. But these have proved to be incredibly unreliable. So I think it's kind of funny that of all the ICs that somebody had pulled out before, they didn't pull out this MOS logic, which could well be faulty. So I'm going to remove that as well. I'll clean up the whole board, put sockets in, and then I'm going to reinstall all the ICs that were originally in there, and we'll see if that makes any difference. I am kind of curious just to see if fixing up all these traces will result in a working machine, or if, potentially one or multiple ICs here have already died. So yeah, curious to know what happens, but definitely either way, this MOS logic, I think there is another one here. Yes, there is. Both of these I'll replace with proper 74 logic, but just test them out first to see if they actually still work, but I somehow doubt it. And I think it'll be pretty funny if after I repair everything, we get the exact same problem and it proves to be this one that's faulty, but I guess we'll find out.
3 hours later.
Alright, so after a ridiculous amount of cleaning up, soldering, installing bodge wires, putting in new sockets, this is where we're at. So I did run out of 16 pin sockets, so I put 2 machine pin sockets here. But I figure if that's the RAM, then that kind of separates the RAM from everything else. That's my story and I'm sticking to it. On the other side, we can see there are a few bodge wires installed. I actually used magnet wire, so it's very thin. It's yeah, you know, what you'd find in speaker magnets or transformers. So it's very thin wire with just like a laminated coating. So using this stuff is pretty simple. The heat from the soldering iron will burn off the laminated coating on it. And what you end up with is some very fine bodge wires. So let's get all these chips reinstalled. Dare I say there's still going to be a fault. You can place your bets down below in the comments right now if you want. But I'm thinking there'll still be a fault, possibly a different fault from what we saw before. But I don't expect this to just fire up and start working. But there's one way to find out. Yep. That's why I don't like using machine pin sockets on desoldered chips, because you have to get the legs 100% perfect, otherwise they will not go in those holes. Right, everything is in. I'm still going to leave these ICs out because we're just going to start off with the dead test. If we can get through that, we'll stick those back in, see what happens. But I really don't think this is just going to work straight away. The board was in a real messed up shape, and I just somehow doubt that even redoing those terrible solder joints is gonna fix all our problems, but never know. Well, we're not getting any flashes. Are we gonna get anything at all though? We get nothing from the dead test cartridge. I made it worse. Well, nothing is getting overly hot. Suppose that's good. Right, well, at least all the RAM seems to be connected correctly. Well, I did find one problem. There's a trace missing just here, and it looks like I totally forgot to reconnect that. So that could be something. Well, it is something, but will it be enough? So it needs to go from that point there to this second pin here. So I'm just going to remove the solder from that second pin, wrap a tiny bit of the magnet wire around it, and then heat and solder. It should now be connected, and it just needs to go to this point right here, not far to go. Right, so I've just cleared the solder out of that wire just so I can stick this all the way through the board. And then if we just apply some heat here, let it sort of burn through the laminate. That should be good. Give it a quick test. From there to there, we have a connection. And then on this side, it's a little bit sticking out, so I'll just jiggle that around until it breaks off. All right, let's try this again. Here we go. Well, still no flashes. Are we going to see anything come up at all? Still nothing. Nada. Back to the drawing board. It's scope time. Yay. Alright, so after a bit of scoping I did find a couple of issues, so let's take a look. First of all, I started looking at the RAM, which everything appears to be fine there. So we can see there is activity going on, and yeah, it's pretty much peaking at around 4.5 to 5 volts. So everything seems okay there. But what I did find was pin 5 on U25 looks really odd. Where is... Oh, sorry, this is U25. So pin 5 is stuck around 2 volts, so that suggests that there's some kind of conflict happening where something is trying to drive it low and something else is trying to drive it high, and we're just getting stuck in the middle. So that's a bit suspect, But what's even worse is U13. There were a bunch of pins on this that do not look right at all. Wait a minute. Now they look okay. Well, that's bizarre. Well, previously what I was seeing was a bunch of lines that were either stuck high or stuck low, but now there is what looks like normal activity. It's still a bit suspect because it is a MOS chip, so I don't know. I'm definitely not going to leave it in there, but it certainly didn't look like this previously. It seems to have come back to life. Anyway, pin 5 on U25 definitely doesn't look right. So, U25, let's just do a little bit more inspection. So U25 is this IC here, so that's pin 1. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So pin 5 is just there. And pin 6 looks a little bit weird. When I redid all these bodge wires, I assumed that this trace coming down here to pin 6 then carries on up here somewhere. But I think that trace down the bottom actually was going to pin 5 because there's a big chunk of the board missing here. I think I've connected that incorrectly. So 5 might just be floating. Pin 6, oh yeah, there is plenty of activity going on, but is it the right activity? Yeah, you can see that the trace led up this way, and I assumed it was going to pin 6, but I think it was actually going up to pin 5. I could obviously pull out the schematics, but let's just see what happens. It makes more sense that something would be going to pin 5 because there doesn't seem to be anything on the top side of the board that connects to it. And that trace goes down here, back up here, past these, up to there, which I think is where a bodge wire previously was, so probably should have picked up on that. So I think I was trying to be a little bit clever by connecting pin 6 to this trace without using a bodge wire, but turns out pin 5 was actually supposed to connect to that trace, so my bad. Let's see what it looks like now. Power on. Pin 5. Now looks like that. That is much better. Pin 6 looks about the same. This thing I'm still... Aha! So the MOS logic at U13, that's what it looked like before. So things were just high. A couple of them looked okay, but everything else just looked off. Yep, that's sitting high. Something is up with that MOS logic, which isn't a huge surprise. Let's just connect a display, see if it's changed at all. Power on. Wait for the dead test to start. Aha, flashes. That's a change. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So before I go chasing faulty RAM, I'm just going to pull out this MOS logic. And according to C64 Wiki, the MOS 7708 is a 74LS257, which is what I have here. All right. No flashes. Yes. 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 So that dead test was pointing us towards a faulty RAM IC, but it turns out it's a faulty, I think they're multiplexes, these two. So yep, dead test, you know, take it with a grain of salt. It's not always the RAM, could be something interfacing with it. While I wait for that to run through, what is a MOS 7712? So 74LS08. So yeah, that's coming out as well. So that's where I'm going to have to leave this one, because this machine just keeps on giving, or taking. So I hope you join us in part 2, where the second MOS logic chip will come out, and we find a very unexpected fault as a result of that, along with some other issues along the way. So I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, be sure to like, subscribe. Don't forget to hit the notification bell so you know when part 2 is coming out. But I hope you do come back for part 2, and yeah, thank you all for watching. A massive thanks to the people that support the channel on Patreon, and I will hopefully see you in the next one. Bye.